following video is not intended for younger audiences. Strong language is used throughout and is not suited for children under the age of 13. Viewer discretion is advised.
Spyro the Dragon.
The series I've held dear to my heart since I first played Year of the Dragon on my sister's PS1 many years ago. Or at least tried to. I never actually played most of it because the disc was in such poor condition. Starting out as one of Sony's unofficial mascots alongside the likes of Crash Bandicoot and Lara Croft, the original Spyro trilogy from 1998 to 2000 was some of my personal favourite games of all time, even more so with the Reignited trilogy being one of my favourite remakes. After Year of the Dragon was released, the team behind the trilogy, Insomniac Games, had to give up on the Spyro series because they were running out of ideas. This led to them creating the Ratchet & Clank games, while Universal Interactive had the rights to Spyro. Since they wanted the franchise to continue, they decided to hire two brand new teams, Check 6 Studios and Equinox Digital Entertainment, to create the next mainline installment into a beloved series. You heard correctly, everyone. They decided to hire two brand new teams. To make matters worse, was that this game was rushed for a November 2002 release date.
I think we can all assume why. Bad money grubbing company. Bad.
The final product, Spyro Enter the Dragonfly, arguably the most controversial entry in the franchise, and one that did so poorly that it put both studios out of business after their first and only game.
That's not a good sign. But it has been a few years since I last played it, so maybe it's not as bad as I remember. Whoa. What the fuck is that?
Our story begins with that, I suppose. Spyro, Sparks, Hunter and Bianca are ready to give the baby dragons, the ones from Year of the Dragon, their dragonflies. Suddenly, Ripto appears.
A lot of people like to complain about this because they say that Ripto should have died at the end of Spyro 2 Gateway to Glimmer. But it's an overused joke. I'm not going to do it. So how come Ripto reappears in Spyro 2 Season of Flame, which came out a whole month before?
He asks Spyro to team up, but to no surprise he gets rejected, as if that was going to go well at all. And can I just add that no one's doing anything? All that's happened so far is Ripto appears, then he and Spyro start yammering at each other like an old married couple. It's not engaging to watch, and you just want it to be over. The voice acting here is fine. Tom Kenny reprises his role as the voice of Spyro, Hunter and Bianca's voices sound fine, and Ripto's voice actor does a pretty good job. The Red Wonder then casts a spell that makes the dragonflies vanish, including Sparks, then proceeds to bugger off. Sparks turns out to be just a few steps away though, which makes me question what the point of hyping his disappearance even was. Bianca does a thing that allows Spyro to use different breath abilities, but here's the catch. As Bianca's magic isn't strong enough, Spyro will need to find different rooms across the dragon world before he can use them. Then, our purple protagonist sets out to retrieve the missing dragonflies.
Well, that certainly was an introduction. Hopefully we'll get better from here.
After roughly 4 minutes of what felt like Spyro soap opera dialogue, filler, and a loading screen in between, we can play the game. Our first task is to deliver this room for bubble breath to the dragon spirit across the field. Simple enough. Spyro controls near identically to a PS1 title, but he feels a little looser while at the same time also feeling stiff. It's a little hard to describe, but the best way to do so would be to say that he feels like he does in the PS1 trilogy, albeit a little tankier. After playing the original games and the Reignited trilogy, this did take some time to get used to, but I managed to adjust after about half an hour. He's retained all his abilities from Year of Dragon 2, so that's really nice to see. He can still glide, hover, charge, climb ladders, head bash, and swim. Although his jump felt a little delayed, which led to my death on more than one occasion. It's a control scheme that's been retained from its console predecessors, so at least the game does that right. Unfortunately, the game doesn't think so, and feels the need to interrupt me every time I blink. Yes, Sparks, I know how to break chests. I know how to refill my health. I've been doing it for 3 games now, just stop! Now that we have bubble breath, we can! So, we've barely started, and the game's lack of polish is already showing. But let's put that to one side for now. We'll get to that soon enough. As I was saying, now that we have bubble breath, we can catch dragonflies, which are the game's main collectible found either roaming the level or from challenge portals.
Since we have a few, let's enter the first level, Dragonfly Dojo. And then the problems start to show.
These loading screens. Holy shit, these loading screens. Depending on what the game's trying to load, it can take anywhere from 20 to 60 seconds. Let me repeat that. Anywhere from 20 to 60 seconds. Compare that to a PS1 trilogy that took maybe 10 seconds at most. They appear every time you enter and exit a level or minigame, which is more frequently than you'd think. And then you get into the level, and you wonder what the game was trying to load to begin with because there's almost nothing here. These worlds are really spacious and empty, so there are gems pretty much everywhere to compensate, meaning you'll be sauntering from side to side like someone who didn't get enough sleep and is desperately trying to hold onto the wall. Losing sparks makes things even worse because you have less pickup range. Collecting gems has never felt more tedious. And I swear, details like this fog and these particles make the frame rate chug hard. In fact, neither of those things need to be there for the frame rate to slow down. It drags so often you're lucky if it maintains its intended pace. It's honestly painful to look at in person. Not long after I found a speedway. Something I do like about Enter the Dragonfly is that speedways have been placed into the main levels instead of being found in the hub world. And I'm not gonna lie, I like this change. Speedways never felt like full levels to me, so I don't mind that they're treated as minigames here. Other than a change in where they're located, they're pretty much the same as they were in the previous games, consisting of a time attack mode and a race. Wait, that's all? No new modes whatsoever? There isn't even a secret challenge hidden anywhere. Since I'm still talking about the speedways, I gotta say Spyro is fun to control in the air. Don't get me wrong, he still feels tanky, but I'd be lying if I said he wasn't fun to control here. Visually speaking, the game looks fine. When stuff like fog isn't trying to obstruct your vision, the game can look really nice, even if everything does look undertextured. There are quite a few locations in this game I really like, Dragonfly Dojo and Monkey Monastery to name a few. The character models, on the other hand, yeah, they're not too pretty. Spyro, Ripto and Bianca look fine. Most of the characters look like what would happen if you asked a 9-year-old to create a cartoon character out of plasticine. You know, this ring texture doesn't line up properly. If I had to notice that you're suffering with me. Hey look, it's Moneybags. This is the only time he appears in the game, which is a recurring theme for these side characters. Hunter shows up a few times, but Bianca gives you rune advice, and then she disappears, and Moneybags makes you pay up 200 gems to progress, then he disappears. Why bring these characters back if you're not going to do anything with them? That'd be an interesting idea though. If Moneybags isn't here anymore, then what purpose does the treasure now have? The shop to buy power-ups, perhaps? Maybe they can be used to unlock new parts of the Dragon Realms?
How about fuck all?
That's right. From this point on, collecting treasure serves absolutely no purpose outside of a minuscule 100% completion bonus. Picking up any after visiting Moneybags is a waste of time, and that's kind of an issue for a collectathon game. Gems might as well not be here, but they are anyway to pad out gameplay as much as possible. Spyro 1. Spyro 1! Still gave you a reason to collect treasure. And dragonflies aren't much fun to collect either. Catching them out in the open is more infuriating if anything because they won't stay still. And the bubble breath. The breath with the sole purpose of catching these bastards doesn't even work half the time. Compared to the range of the other breath types, bubble breath is absolutely horrendous. It only works when it feels like it. At least the dragonflies have a reason to be collected, as the more you collect, the more worlds you can access. Another minigame I found was a tank challenge. It doesn't control terribly, but it can take a while to complete. It was okay. That's it for Dragonfly Dojo. Time to head back to the home world. Never mind, how about another long loading screen instead? Since we found a rune in that world, we can take it to the Dragon Spirit, granting us the ability to use electric breath, which can activate the occasional node every now and again. Spyro's default flame breath also has some uses outside of combat, mainly to melt ice blocks, but during combat though they're practically interchangeable. The game's one homeworld, the Dragon Realms, is another level I like when it comes to aesthetics. Each level has a unique setting, and the game tries to show this off by having a structure or change in environment to capture the nearby world's theme. It's a minor detail, but I really like it. Next world, Crop Circle Country, a farm world invaded by space riptodes. Sounds like an interesting concept, but it's a shame this is the worst level in the game in my opinion. It's here where you really notice how empty and uninspired this game's level design can get. It's so flat and so barren that even calling it level design feels like a stretch. It had some good challenges, but other than that there's nothing really noteworthy to talk about. What kind of name is J-Dubs anyway? Luau Island. This stage is the typical beach world. I picked up a room for Wing Shield here, so that's something. This dragonfly is also refusing to be captured. Why are we still here? This level has you do a lot of swimming, which controls similarly to flying, except you can fully control Spyro's forward movement underwater. Whoa, I guess the bubble breath is more powerful than I initially thought. Now that I've rescued all pigs, it's time to journey onward. Spyro, are you feeling okay? Oh. That shouldn't be happening. Yeah, I've been avoiding it for a while now, and there's no skipping over it anymore. Spyro Enter the Dragonfly is a broken mess. There are glitches around every corner, and you will encounter several in a single playthrough, no matter what you try to do to prevent them. Whenever they decide to rear their ugly heads, they can really take you out the experience. Character models will freeze up, invisible platforms where there shouldn't be any, voids blinking in and out of existence, objects not loading correctly, controls locking up momentarily, easily being able to break out of bounds, and phasing through things you shouldn't be able to phase through to name a few. It's disgraceful.
Now, I'm not going to pretend the original trilogy were these flawless masterpieces with zero issues whatsoever, because they had their problems. But they were nowhere near as bad as this.
Cloud9, the next world, is one of the better levels in the game. It has a great setting, and each world from here on out has some good platforming segments to try and counterbalance the emptiness. But it's not really saying much. I'd go as far as to say that this is the best looking level in the game, but the frame rate is still shitting itself, which really drags it down. It's also accompanied by some really good music. The soundtrack is pretty decent. The game has quite a few tracks I really like. There's even a little more emphasis on vocal accompaniment in a similar fashion to Colossus' theme from Spyro 2. I do think it's one of the more forgettable Spyro soundtracks, however. I still find it hard to believe that Stuart Copeland composed the music here just like he did with Spyro 1 through 3. It's definitely not as good, but there are still quite a few gems in the rough.
Sure I did that. Fucking comedy wizard.
Combat is simple, but fun. Spyro can use his breath and charge as attacks to defeat bad guys much like before. Since you have two of the breath abilities, there's also a few minor twists which I'll go over soon. Enemies are only really a threat in small clusters, but there's some nice variation in their typing though. You've got your basic Riptocs, as well as some level-specific enemies. Another mini-game I found involved using a Spitfire to defend the Spare's palace. After a minute or so of shooting these ships and waiting for something to happen, I was shot down. Sorry kid, Puffy Palace is on its own. I don't quite know how to say this. Most of these challenges are really boring. There's only 16 in the whole game. 3 of those are the admittedly fun speedways. Despite that, 6 of those are vehicle segments that outstay their welcome. 3 are these okay slide challenges, 2 platforming challenges, 1 ladder challenge which I didn't manage to get footage for, and 1 memory game. The problem is these repeated challenge types feel all the same to me, mainly the vehicle challenges halfway into the game. They all follow the same structure of needing to save or destroy X number of objects. It doesn't go anywhere beyond that. Call me a hypocrite for liking the speedways, but they're not frequent and are spread out evenly across the game. Meanwhile, the vehicle missions are in 6 back-to-back levels. Combine that with these loading screens that take place entering and exiting a minigame, and you can see why I dread having to go into them. There's also these breath gates that give you the same amount of time to destroy 8 of a certain item, but it doesn't matter what breath the game tells you to use because it's the exact same task with a different skin. Where's the Spyro creativity the series is known for?
Ah, right, I forgot. Because the game was rushed and as a result, too many ideas were rehashed and unfinished, with way more being cut due to time constraints. That explains a lot of things.
We now have the room for Ice Breath, the last breath ability in the game also making a reappearance from Spyro 3's Frozen Altars. It can be used to freeze enemies in place, leaving them open to a charge attack, but why not use one of the other 2 breaths because they're just more efficient? It can also be used for turning characters into platforms, but situations like that are incredibly infrequent. Sparks, we're over halfway through the game at this point. Why do you insist on telling me information that I already know? These loading screens are really starting to test my patience as well. The following world is Monkey Monastery. I don't remember the camera snagging onto things this often. Bartholomew was another victim to the one-time appearance issue while Bentley's nowhere to be seen. I also stopped collecting gems at this point, because I just couldn't be bothered, and I knew there wasn't a good reward for doing so. After that level, we get another cutscene. Ripto and his minions arrive at his throne room. It only took them 3.5 hours. Does teleportation not work that fast? The dragonflies aren't there, so he takes his frustrations out on Crush and Gulp. Since they don't appear later in the game, I'm going to assume they were murdered, because that makes the story a little more engaging. Also, what's this cutscene doing halfway into the game? Its only purpose is to explain what we already know about the whereabouts of the dragonflies, so it feels really out of place. Next up is Honey Marsh. It has some catchy music, with a fun concept. This is then followed up by Thieves' Den. Remember that wing shield room we picked up a while ago? Well, this is the only level it can be used in, and it sucks. Its intended purpose is to reflect these spells back at the magician Riptocs. The problem is that the accuracy is piss poor. 9 times out of 10, it won't send the attack back in the enemy's direction, so you need to sit there and slowly readjust yourself 2 fucking degrees at a time until it actually works. Because of how poorly the wing shield is executed here, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a last minute inclusion. Thieves' Den is another area that looks really nice. Or it can just disappear, that's cool too. Let's add that to the list of glitches, why don't we? The last main level is Jurassic Jungle, a world inspired by Jurassic Park, and the Terminator of all things. It's a cool idea if anything. Robot dinosaurs in my Spyro game? Yes please. If my PS2 didn't break so early, 8-year-old me would scream in excitement. Also, the slide minigame here has some really catchy music. probably my favourite track in the entire game. Ice Breath also has a purpose here, and it's the only thing that can defeat these bigger robot dinos. If there were more elemental enemies like this, I feel as though that would differentiate the breaths enough to make them feel distinct. The way they were handled here feels like they were thrown in for the sake of it, and it comes across as a half-baked idea that didn't exactly reach its full potential. Finally, we come face to face with Ripto himself. I'm sure this will be a battle for the ages. And what does he do? He casts a spell that summons a wall of ice that can be destroyed by Spyro's flame breath. Once it's gone, we torch him a few more times. He moans about being defeated, and the credits roll. That's it. That was one of the most unfulfilling, pathetic excuses for a boss fight I've ever seen. I could have just swam in the air and glitched into the arena portal instead with the exact same outcome. Depending on how far you've completed the game, you'll actually get extra phases to the boss fight as well as a few extra ending cutscenes. But neither are worth it.
So, that was Spyro Enter the Dragonfly. A rushed clusterfuck that starts out promising, but the quality nosedives very quickly.
It looks decent, it controls well enough, the music, while not being as memorable as the rest of the series, does have its moments. Unfortunately, everything else is either frustrating, boring, broken, or pointless. Crappy story, unsatisfying collectibles, bland level design, uninteresting mini-games, loading times that gave Sonic 06 a run for its money, glitches up the arse, the frame rate that makes me want to tear my eyes out. Everything in this game feels like such a massive downgrade in my opinion. The game itself is also really short, but taking what I've just mentioned into consideration, that's a plus to me because I'd rather not spend any longer with it. Is it the worst game I've ever played though? No, far from it actually. I can safely say I have played much, much worse than this game.
I understand that this game has its fans, and if you like Enter the Dragonfly, that's completely fine. I'm not knocking you for that. You're free to like whatever you please. For me, sadly, I can't bring myself to enjoy it. And that pretty much summarizes my thoughts on the game. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, sharing, and maybe subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.